Hi, you are watching Field Tested on TradeTV and I am your host Drawbacks Chatterjee. Today's guest is Michigan Solar Solutions, a company that spent over a decade building solar systems that can take on Michigan's unpredictable weather and still deliver results. No hype, just hands-on insight from inverters to optimizers to battery storage and even mounting systems. This is Field Tested and you are watching TradeTV, your trusted source for all things solar. Carl, welcome to the show. Kindly introduce yourself and a little bit about your company.
Hi, my name is Carl Hercula. I'm with Michigan Solar Solutions. I am the Vice President of Field Services for the company. I've been with the company for 11 years now in counting, and it's been what they call a solar coaster, with its ups and downs. So it's been a great 11 years, I gotta say, and I've watched a company go from a very small ma and pa shop to an established corporation.
Now moving on to the products you will be discussing today, could you give us a quick overview of the products you have chosen and why you have selected them?
As a NABCEP certified PV installer, I've got the PVIP certification. I really try to stay objective to a lot of the products that we install, but over the years I've come to just love a couple of these products, and one of them is SolarEdge with their inverters and optimizers and battery systems, and then the second would be IronRidge. It's a racking manufacturer that we use, specifically their XR series.
In this segment we will take a closer look at SolarEdge inverters, why it remained a trusted choice for years, and what installers should still watch out during the setup.
So SolarEdge was one of the first inverters that I had worked with when I started working in the field, and as a new installer, you really have no clue what you're doing, and you're almost a child going out there. So SolarEdge did the right thing, and they made it where the installers are safe when they're installing it. When I say that, they limit production of the solar panels until everything is actually connected up. If there are loose wires, it automatically drops down to a 1 volt per module safety voltage, eliminating any kind of shock hazard that the installer can come across. So it's really important to me, number one, safety. Being the vice president of field services, I watch over my guys, and I can't say the same for other products, such as string inverters and some of the inverters, commercial inverters that are out there.
Speaking of performance and reliability, you have worked with many different products over the years, not just SolarEdge. How would you rate their overall performance?
I have SolarEdge at my house. I installed a system at my house, and I installed a system at my mother's house that I believe in the product so much. Some of the things I want to go over are their safety features, their built-in arc fault detection, where, if you had a squirrel chew through a wire, as long as you're stringing it right, and as long as you have your mapping right, you can actually do an isolation test on the inverter and find out where exactly on that array you have a squirrel bite, where it's touching ground to one of the home run leads. So it saves a lot of time from a serviceability standpoint, compared to any other system I've never seen, and it's safe too. So it cuts off the voltage. It has a rapid shutdown compliancy. It's been compliant with the NEC since 2017 for that, maybe even sooner than that. I would say 2014, 2013. They did it before rapid shutdown was even required. They have thermal monitoring with auto shutdown, so if the system heats up, it's going to automatically shut down. Some of the cons that I could say, the app is a little laggy sometimes. It's the Bluetooth connection and then the Wi-Fi connections. Yeah, it's, sometimes it's a little janky, but, they've gotten better with that, throughout the years, I've got to say. The only other thing that I have bad to say about SolarEdge, and bless them, I really appreciate them, but they're proprietary. There's no third-party battery integration at this point. I mean, they used to have the LG Chems, but I think they stopped using those because of problems with the chemistry of the battery and the integration with if you're going SolarEdge, you're going SolarEdge, and that's about it.
First, how does this product compare to others in this category?
I mean, I think hands down, SolarEdge is the way to go. They've got the 99% efficiency. They've got the 200% oversizing of the string. So you can, power your loads. It's a DC to DC conversion from the battery to the inverter, from the solar panels to the inverter to the battery. It's all DC conversion, even with their EV charger, they kind of encourage you to oversize your system. So with other systems comparatively, if you oversize it, you'll see clipping, and then, you're losing out on production there. With SolarEdge, it actually it takes advantage of that clipping, and it powers up any DC loads that you have, meaning a battery or an EV charger, a battery for your car. It's really, really great. No other system I know that does that. So it really kind of turned me on to SolarEdge even more when they came out with the home hub inverter with that capability.
How would you place this product in terms of price point compared to others in the field?
Well, SolarEdge is a little pricier, but for all the features that they have, I think it's well worth it. From the serviceability standpoint, like I said, if going to a string inverter and trying to find a bad solar panel within the system itself, you're going to be spending hours out there if you are on a large commercial site. Whereas with SolarEdge, they have a monitoring app where you can, look at that and, do it from the office, have, some office employees that are, paid slightly less than the installers, and they can find this error, out there in the field and deploy, a service team out there, and the service team spends, like a fraction of a time what someone would trying to do diagnostics on a string inverter.
All right, are there any hidden costs with these products that you think installers or even end clients should be aware of?
Their cell system, their cell communications. So they give you a cell kit. They used to give you a cell kit with their inverters, or you would have to buy it separate, and they were anywhere from $500 to $700 depending on what cell kit you got. And they only last 5 years. So you got a 5-year plan, and then you got to re-up, that plan for another 5 years. So that's kind of the hidden costs that I see with that. The way we mitigated that, we try to do, landlines and hard lines, so the customer's not, having to absorb that cost.
All right, let's move on to the battery system. It's a simpler setup compared to the inverter. What's your initial impressions from the field?
I really do like the battery. I like that SolarEdge came out with their own battery. Prior, like I said, they were using the LG Chem, and there were problems with that. And then trying to get manufacturers to warranty their products, 2 different manufacturers, kind of working against each other, and pointing fingers. It was your fault, it was my fault, and yeah, and you go back and forth, and it's like, with SolarEdge having its own battery, it's all in one, it's all inclusive, they own their product, they understand it. With the batteries, one thing you need is an 8-gauge crimper if you are going to, it's for an MC4 crimper. Unfortunately, these are not easy to find, and they're quite expensive to get an 8-gauge crimper, a good one. Some battery handles, that you'll have to use, because these batteries are heavy. Unlike their inverters, the batteries are pretty weighty. You will need 2 people at least. I recommend 3, to hang these batteries up on their mounts. They do stack on the ground, which is great, but if you're putting them up on a wall, or even if you're just moving them from the vehicle out to the site, they're heavy. You want to get a battery dolly, one of those hydraulic dollies, or just something to help you out to make your job a lot easier, and it's recommended to do that, so you're not, endangering your people out there to, pulling backs or muscles or anything like that.
How would you describe the pricing and market positioning of this battery? especially considering SolarEdge does not support third-party batteries. How does that factor in?
These are lithium iron phosphate batteries, so comparable to, let's say, Enphase. I would say they're right around the same price. You're going to need a BIU as well to integrate with the inverter to the battery, but comparable to other batteries, I got to say they're right up there. They are pricey. All batteries are expensive right now, so it's I imagine they're going to come down in price over the years, but right now it's an expensive little toy that you want to buy, if you need it.
If you had to suggest an alternative to this one, what other battery options would you recommend?
Enphase, they have a great product line of batteries. They have their 5P system out. I believe they're coming out with a 10P as well. And those are all stackable as well, along with the SolarEdge.
In this segment, we will dive deep into how SolarEdge's optimizer systems perform in the field, what installers need to keep in mind when working with them in a tight ecosystem.
It's a major part of the system, of the inverter itself. Without the optimizer, like I said, it's proprietary. Without the optimizer, the inverter will not work. You cannot string solar panels together and plug it into the inverter. It will damage it.
Quick question, is the system open to using other optimizers, or are you required to use only SolarEdge optimizers with their setup?
You can only use it's proprietary again, so yes, you have to only use the SolarEdge optimizer. They do mix and match, with some of the optimizers out there. There are different types of optimizers, some that are commercial, some that are residential, depending on what size cell, what cell size panel you have, or what voltage or wattage, that you have for your panel. You're going to have a different optimizer. And they have a design tool that builds all of that for you. This is one of their optimizers here. It's you can see there's no nuts and bolts or anything that you can do to take this apart. So it's I actually did take one apart one time, cut it open, and it's all potted in there. So there's no way to really have water infiltration in here whatsoever. There's MC4s at the end for each the solar panel, and then connecting optimizer to optimizer. And it's just a really strong, durable product. I mean, it's not heavy. It's these are the optimizers, by the way. They connect in series and then they plug into the inverter. And with these optimizers, you get larger strings too. As compared to Enphase or Tigo or any of those, where you can really load these up, and then you can also put solar panels in different directions on the roof, where with traditional inverters you can't do that. We can have an east-west array where I have panels on the east, panels on the west on the same string, and as long as I'm getting enough voltage throughout the day to awaken a minimum of 8 optimizers, the system is running, it's producing. One downfall with SolarEdge, where you have to have 8 optimizers, that are actually working in order for the system to work, for a string to work, on one MPPT. So, Enphase, for instance, you could have one microinverter working, and, the system would still produce. You would still backfeed into the grid or power loads within your house. But, SolarEdge, it does require that, 8 panels are clear. And if you have snow on there, like any system, it's going to drop your voltage, drop your production, and with enough snow, you might not get any kind of production. But with their inverters, they are 99% efficient.
Whenever you are in contact with the company, be it for a client, be it for yourself, how would you rate their overall support and communication?
As far as their support, like phone support, tech support, back years ago, I gotta be honest, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And it was probably because of the influx of callers and, their lack of staff at the time. But just lately, I haven't been out in the field too much, but when I did call SolarEdge to check on a system, and they responded right away. The response time is greatly improved compared to years prior.
So looking at the full combo, inverter, optimizer, battery, how would you rate it compared to a standalone system that could be assembled to do the same job?
From a serviceability standpoint, a safety standpoint, and just an overall 11 years of experience working with this product, I give it a 9 out of 10. And other products, I haven't given them that ever. I mean, I really haven't. And I'm very honest and very open and very, crude about my ratings on systems.
All right, we have covered the full SolarEdge setup. Now let's shift gears and talk about the other product in the lineup, IronRidge XR racking systems.
Yeah. So the IronRidge XR series, their mounting system, has excellent structural load ratings, integrated bonding hardware, which is faster and safer installs, versatile across shingles, tile, metal roofs. They have a lot of different products that they have there. It's installer friendly with design and strong documentation. The safety features include the UL 2703 certified bonding for mechanical and fire. They have integrated bonding, so there's no separate lugs, in between the panel and the rail itself. I do have a few of the products I can show you in a minute. They're Class A fire rated assemblies, and they're engineered for seismic and wind loads, wind zones. So they really thought of everything with IronRidge.
There are a ton of racking systems out there, and I know you are familiar with many of them, including the custom ones. So why choose this one? As an installer, you are free to go with anything. What made this your pick?
The less parts, there are so many less parts that you need to use for this, for this product. I gotta say, the socket, size that they have you use on this, it's one socket, it's 7/16 inch. So I'm not having to switch to a 1/2 inch, to a 7/16 inch, to a 9/16 inch, to, a millimeter. It's all one inclusive tool, for the whole entire system. The rail lengths, I gotta say, they have a 14-foot rail length. I like having large span rails. We can load those up on the ladder racks on the truck. There's less splicing. They've come out throughout the years with their newer parts, including their splices, which, eliminated, 2 screws, on each side for, of the rail to bond it together. They have integrated bonding throughout their whole entire system. So, when we go up there, we're putting a lot less ground wire up there and having to use a lot less copper with, the price of copper going up so much. That's really important, for all of us installers, to kind of find that cutting edge, to stay relevant within the system, itself. This is the XR 100 rail itself. This is their mid clamp, their rail splice. I've already got it in there, so real hard to take out, and it's not even connected together with any screw or anything. It just slides right in. So you put this guy in, and it goes together, and it's together. It's bonded too. So within the system itself, you can see right here, it scratches the inside of the rail, and that scratch creates a bond, from rail to rail. So, there's no need to bond each side of the rail like you used to back in the day. Along with that, they have their mid clamp, which serves as an end clamp as well. It has integrated bonding. I don't know if you can see that on the inside there, the scratch or the little weaves that kind of scratch in. So that'll scratch into the panel along with, that edge there where, it digs into the inside of this rail. So that'll go in there like this, it'll twist, and then you tighten that down with the 7/16 right on top of the panel there. So it scratches the panel, scratches the rail. So from UFO to panel to rail, it's all bonded. And then from rail to rail, it's bonded. Yeah, so, there's no extra hardware that you need to put in there. They also got their ground lug, here, for when you have to, install your grounding. And with this system, if you have your panel bonded, you typically you have two rails going across and then a panel sitting on top of those. You're not going to have to bond each rail section. You can skip a rail to the next section, or just go right to your solar deck, or wherever you're going with your ground wire. So a lot less ground wire, if you integrate it right and you play it out right. Over the years, I've done this system for years. I can lay these out, like off the back of my hand, because I've done them so much. But another great thing they have is their hidden fastener. They call it a camo, because it's camouflage. So this, kind of goes in the rail itself right here, and then it slides in there and it locks in, the inside frame of the panel. So, that this will be hidden underneath of the panel itself.
And how do they hold up over time through seasons, winters, and different environmental conditions?
We have never had to warranty one single item for IronRidge. Not one. I think the one thing that they did wrong was it's overkill for a standard roof, for some smaller standard roofs, where you don't have snow load or anything like that. But, I would rather have overkill than underkill.
With so many racking options available, especially in the residential segment, where does the IronRidge product stand out in terms of value? And what makes it worth choosing?
I don't know exactly the prices on them, but I from what I've heard, IronRidge, we're getting a better deal with them than we would with, any other system, that we've installed. We, looked into Pegasus, their product line, and they do make a good product. I'm not going to downplay their product whatsoever. But, as far as price, I think they are a little more pricier than normal.
How would you rate IronRidge overall in terms of communication, supply, availability, and company support?
I would give them a 9 out of 10 as well, for that. These products are easily available. IronRidge is up to speed with, the ear, listening to the installers, hey, we can make this product better, by doing this or that or the other. And
that brings us to the close of this field-tested episode. A sincere thanks to you, Carl, Vice President of Field Operations at Michigan Solar Solutions, for bringing us real-world insights straight from the job site.
It was great being on the show. I mean, I've never really done one of these, but I really want to thank you for inviting me on, and I look forward to doing any other highlights or reviews for you guys.
Here at TradeTV, we don't just talk specs. We showcase what's truly performing in the field through the eyes of professionals who use these products every day. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more of such expert-driven reviews, product deep dives, and installer-driven stories. Once again, I am Drawbacks Chatterjee, and thanks for watching TradeTV, your trusted source for all things solar.